and welcome to this month's version of Tribe Talk, Sunday, September 27th, 2020, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Purpose of Tribe Talks, as always, is to get a group of like-minded people together to discuss what's going on in our profession, knowing that we have more in common than we have differences, enhancing communications to establish an improvement mindset, sharing our experiences and our ideas. So this is a two-way conversation. Don't be afraid to jump in, ask questions, or give us your opinion, because that's important to us all. This is, it's important to recognize this is an independent event, not sponsored by any organization, regardless of who may participate. The one thing we're looking for is improvement of our tribe. A little tribe talk etiquette. I won't bore you with reading it because I think everybody who is here has seen it before. If we do have technical difficulties, please come back as soon as you can. And if I drop off, talks amongst yourselves till I get back in. All right. Thank you for smiling a little bit, Laura. I appreciate that. So here are the topics for tonight. It's kind of been a themed week for me. I've had like 5 different meetings, and in every meeting, including Tribe Talk Happy Hour this week, a topic of discussion was the NHTSA documents, both the 2014 model standards and then the 2019, the most recent document they put out, the NHTSA 5-year motorcycle safety plan. So I figured we'd kick off with that tonight, and then I'll talk quickly about IFZ Sessions. Initially wanted to talk about the research, but I think I'd prefer to wait until the conference closes to do that. And then, as always, the Tribe Talk poll. So to kick things off, I'm actually going to start with a poll tonight. So let me see if I can pull this up without us crashing. And this is kind of important for us all to understand where we are in the knowledge of the NHTSA documents I'm talking about. So I have just started the poll. Please answer if you are capable. I know we have a few people that are on cell phones tonight that will not be able to. So real quick poll. The first question is, have you read the 2014 NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, recommended model national administrative standards for state motorcycle rider training programs? And I put recommended in there because it is not a regulatory document. It's their recommendations for states. And then, of course, the second question, have you read the 2019 National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's Motorcycle Safety 5-year plan? Lastly, which section of the 5-year plan most affects rider training? So whether you've read it or not, take a look at the questions or take a look at the answers and see which one you think is more important for you to understand where they're going with it when it comes to us as rider education. I know, questions up front, a little bit more difficult.
Kind of hard to answer the third question if you've answered no to the first 2.
Yes and no.
No, I'm going with yes on this one.
Okay.
I don't know what the different sections even relate to.
Oh, really?
I couldn't find out where those program models were because I looked before and didn't find them. Of course, that was probably a luck of the draw or unlucky of the draw at that time.
And we're about 85% voted. I'll let it finish off here so it doesn't take up too much more time, maybe another half minute or so. So if you're struggling, just take a guess. Too many things open. Let's see if I can do this. And because I'm seeing a lot of no's out there, let me see if I can pass these documents along to you through the chat room. Probably not. All right, so polling complete, 92% voted. Let me share the results. For number one, about 69% have not reviewed the document or haven't read it, and 31% have. 100% on the 5-year plan, people have not taken a look at it yet. Let me take a snapshot. And save a document. Please forgive me for being a little bit slow tonight, but I think you're used to that. And so I find it interesting, efforts to improve the agency support of state activities. By the way, there's no right or wrong answer on any of these. You know, it is what it is. And, you know, that is probably where I would have answered those 4 questions or those 4 particular sections. However, I think we do need to do a better job at identifying current data to improve our countermeasure deployment and identifying strategies as they pertain to the federal agenda, which may or may not be where we would want them as rider coaches. So with that in mind, let me see if I can move on to the next slide. Can everybody see the slides okay? All right, I got a head nod. The first thing we're going to discuss is the purpose of the administrative standards. Can you see my little screen here or not? All right, so this document is small. I mean, like, this is a 5, maybe a 10-minute read. So let me read 11, 12 pages if you include the covers, and it's all, you know, spaced out, really, really easy to read. So even I could read it. The reason why I thought we'd talk about this a little bit tonight is the purpose of administrative standards. Would somebody please like to read that paragraph for us?
Purpose of administrative standards. Administrative standards establish a minimum acceptable level of operation for state motorcycle rider training programs. States are encouraged to meet or exceed the minimum standards to improve and maintain the quality of their rider training programs.
So what words strike you in that paragraph? make an impression upon you?
Minimum acceptable.
Okay. Anything else?
States are encouraged.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. So Nicole, you said encouraged. Why does that jump out at you?
Well, now that I work for the Highway Safety Office,
Woohoo!
I'm starting to understand a lot more. So, you know, yeah, our states, we're being encouraged to, you know, we have to meet certain standards if we want that federal funding.
Okay, and what funding are you talking about for those who do not know?
Funding for, you know, the different motorcycle programs, motorcycle safety programs, possibly, well, for like our law enforcement motorcycle programs, also the additional training they do. I mean, they get all their funding from the grants that we do. And I mean, they have to be doing so much for us to continue getting that funding.
Okay, so to receive funding from the higher level of government, and they're called 402 funds, Section 402 for the state and community highway safety grants,
Right.
and then also grants under Section 405 National Priority Safety Program. So two different funds that provides money to the states that assess us in doing our jobs. And so if we're encouraged to meet the standards, what does that really mean?
I have to jump in. It feels lame to me, Don.
That's okay.
You know, encourage just doesn't sound like it means very much, you know, and it's worrisome.
Why do you find it worrisome?
Well, I'm just thinking about all the stuff that's come out with the CDC, not to get political, but I mean, a lot of the watered down, you know, verbiage has changed from more of a mandated or an area of real concern. I mean, encourage doesn't really give me a sense that states are really being told that this is important. And I guess one of my personal worries is that, you know, when reading the paper, it seems like there've been a lot more motorcycle accidents and, you know, and deaths this year, which makes me wonder what's going on and what else really could be done on both a state and a national level. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this as well, but it's something I've observed and it's a concern.
Okay.
So anyways,
Noted. I mean, that is a big part of this. The fact that it's encouraged. If you do not meet or exceed, how do they make it so you will? What's the carrot here? Or the stick, depending on how you look at it.
Well, we just went through our review, our 3-year review. So it's like, you know, we have certain standards that now we're told that we need to, if we were unacceptable in, that we need to meet. We were lucky, we really didn't have a lot, but.
What happens if you don't meet the standards?
Well, my understanding is that you could lose a certain amount of that funding. They will fund for those 402 or those 405 programs, yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why understanding where we are in a pecking order and what needs to be accomplished is important, because those funds feed into rider coaches and equipment and sites being able to do what their jobs are. So kind of interesting. Mike, you mentioned minimum standards. Why did that strike you as important?
Kind of a matter of who's deciding what minimum standards are. And, you know, again, what Betsy said, going back to not being political, if it's the government deciding what a minimal acceptable standard is, then it leaves some question as to who's got and what level of knowledge on what subjects to be defining that.
Okay, and where would we find that information at?
As to who's defining the standards,
Yeah,
I have no idea.
okay. So that's why I brought up the topic of model national standards, because this is where that's defined. And once again, 12 pages, including the covers, that's not a lot of information, but it is the minimum standards. But I get where you're going with this, and I greatly agree. What happens if we just shoot for the minimum standards? And that's a question to everybody.
Generally, you would get probably minimum effort. You're only trying to hit a mark. You're not. Where's the incentive to push further, to push quality up?
Where's excellence?
I like that word. Do you guys agree with what Rick brought up? And Betsy? And gals, I don't mean to discern the group at all. Should we strive for more than minimum standards? I will tell you that I know just from your past with Tribe Talks, everybody in this group, strives for excellence and minimum standards. I don't know about you. I would assume that since you're here, that would make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so when Betsy brings up excellence, I like that word because that's what we should be striving for. So I don't want to get into the weeds of this particular document other than to say that it outlines how programs should run, including instructor and instructor trainers' expectations. So I recommend if you haven't looked at it, look at it. If you have looked at it, look at it again, because this is kind of what drives how your state models are set up. Anybody want to say anything else?
Dan.
Go ahead, Dan.
Dan would the first thing, if this standard document relates to administration of rider training programs, and there's a second standard document that relates to the actual rider training program itself. So NHTSA has two standard documents. We have them both posted on our website. If people, obviously you can find them on the NHTSA website too. And then I was concerned about the comment, not concerned about it, just maybe wanted to make a comment about the government dictating these standards or making these standards. If you read the introduction to the documents, both of these carry the NHTSA byline, but the working body, the working team, the task force that put this together were primarily people selected by SMSA. So when you go to the documents, they'll have a list on the front of who the individuals were, the task force who worked on these. So it wasn't a single government individual or even a department within the government. The task force are made up of motorcycle safety advocates from around the country, primarily picked by SMSA. Both of these documents could just as well be SMSA recommended model national standards as well as NHTSA model national standards, because SMSA people are the ones that really wrote it. The second thing, I think almost every standard document almost by necessity needs to establish the minimum or the basis. it's almost like our, you know, our MSF curriculum is a minimum standard document. Even though the standards are, you know, are rigorous and well defined, it's still minimum standards. Anybody teaching an MSF curriculum can exceed the standards that are established by the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. So that's the. I'm not so concerned about the words minimum acceptable standards or minimum standards.
Both great additions to the conversation, Dan, and I appreciate you saying that. And I think that's important to note that in all these documents, the groups that helped establish them are annotated on front. So if you ever want to ask why things are the way they are, there's a great opportunity there to reach out to those people and say, well, why is it this way? To touch a little bit on minimum standards, if the minimum standards are addressed, I would like to see more than just the minimum standard addressed. And I imagine you can already discern or use your critical thinking in saying that, you know, you can't just have a standard start out as an aggressive standard where nobody can achieve it. And maybe that's why the minimum standards were selected up front to allow people to address the minimum standard and then grow from there. However, if you are familiar with any of the documents that have been put out with NHTSA and the history of motorcycle safety rider education in America, it is a slow moving train, and there are a lot of things that get left behind or forgotten over time. So it's great to go back to the documents that establish why we're doing what we're doing, and then ask why aren't we moving quicker in a better direction. So that's just Don's commentary off the top.
The only other thing, Don, the only other thing that I would encourage people to do is to look at both of the standards documents together. So this one that we're talking about relates to I'm just going to clear it, administrative standards, and there's a second document that identifies the actual training program standards.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. Any comments on those comments?
John, one thing I've looked at here in this statement where it says when the previous slide said you just changed it on me, but no biggie.
That's okay. I'll go back. It works.
Minimum acceptable level. The minimum really sort of sometimes gets to me when I look at helmets that are DOT approved. If I'm not mistaken, on DOT approved helmets, that's just, correct me if I'm wrong from anybody, is that the minimum standards the DOT approves that gets that sticker on the helmet versus what a lot of us know as a Snell helmet, which has higher standards?
Yes, true.
Food for thought on that one.
All right. So the next document I want to discuss is the 5-year safety plan. And you can, once again, get this document off of NHTSA's website. I know it's available on the SMSA website. Dan has it on his website. You want to plug that, Dan?
smarter-usa.org.
Which is an awesome resource.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
No, anytime, because I mean, we got to learn from somewhere. If it's out there and easy to find, and website is easy to find. So, can somebody read section 1 of the 5-year plan?
The initial section identifies current data needs for the agency and data acquisition strategies to improve countermeasure development processes.
So what does that mean to us in writers education? Any thoughts? No? All right, can somebody read number 2?
I will. The second section covers efforts to improve the agency's support of state activities.
And so that was the one that got the most votes in the beginning poll tonight. What do you think that would include? Why would it be important to us? You guys expected me to spoon feed you,
Huh.
tonight, didn't you?
Well, I think the state activities are probably different. You know, MSF doesn't necessarily run programs in all the states now. There's what, I don't know what total control even happening. You know, it used to be that there was more of an issue of like fidelity, it seemed. So I don't know if this would have any to improve the agency support. You know,
So
it's
how does NHTSA help us out at the state level? And I know this is a lot higher than, you know, we normally talk, but I think it's important in finding how it's all interconnected to what we do down at the range level even.
well, I would hope or think that they would be looking at effectiveness of training programs, like looking at maybe state accident level or statistics. I mean, numbers of students who have taken the course versus, you know, just, you know, maybe some data mining to get a sense as to whether what's being done is effective, although that might be more related to the first one too. But how do you identify problems other than, you know, either observing or looking at data?
And
NHTSA also completes program assessments for the motorcycle safety units throughout the country.
you were in the program administrator meeting. Can you discuss a little bit about what we talked, Christopher?
About program assessments?
Yeah.
What happens is a motorcycle safety program will request an assessment of their program, and they will basically have NHTSA come in and do a comprehensive 5 or 6 day review on all aspects of that program. They'll talk to stakeholders and partners in the program, like state police or the licensing agencies. They'll talk to the program administrators for the training sites. They'll talk to instructors, and they go through a very, very thorough 4 or 5 day process. And then the final day, they write the report and give the summary report. The state pays for this to have this done. They can either use the NHTSA 405 funds, or they can pay outright as a state and just pay for it. But they will build a team, an assessment team of 5 or 6 individuals that will come in. They will be there, you know, working literally 18-hour days doing the assessment.
Can I ask a question? Have you been through one of these things? I've worked in hospitals, and we have gone through similar things. The Joint Commission, you know, we pay, actually, now that I'm retired, it's not an issue, but we would pay to have the Joint come in and do like one of these very similar kinds of assessments, and then make recommendations as to whether the hospital was kind of up to par. Now, it didn't necessarily mean anything from a funding standpoint, because that was a separate group of people. That was the CMS, the Center of Medicare, Medicaid people. But what it did give you was a pretty good sense of whether you were doing a halfway decent job. So I guess I'm wondering, did you just go through one of these, Chris, and was it helpful?
Illinois as a state went through one. I believe it was either 10 or 15 years ago. I want to say it was like 2004 or 2010. I don't remember exactly. I've got a copy of it at my office. And we were in the process of going through a new assessment. We had gotten a hold of NHTSA and had the assessment scheduled to take place in February or March of this year. And we had been working on getting all the documentation to do the assessment, getting our stakeholders that were going to be interviewed, everybody lined up, and in, I want to say late November or early December, NHTSA called us and said that they wanted to cancel the assessment because of staffing issues. They couldn't get enough people to do whatever they needed to do, so they were going to pull the plug on it. So we were in the process. If I remember right, on one of the documents that the model standards, it shows all the states that have had assessments, and I believe it's like 33 states have had at least one assessment in their program history.
So do I understand that that's always voluntary and or by request? It's not, there's no mandate that says that programs have to have that at some kind of a certain interval?
You are correct, Laura. It is voluntary.
It's encouraged.
It's highly encouraged, but it is totally voluntary.
What's interesting is there's actually a great, out on the NHTSA site, they have, it's old, they actually have the write-up from all 50 states who participated and what information they found out. And like Christopher said, it's just barely over half of the United States have participated in it. And this was established back in 2000. So here we are 20 years later, and only half of the United States, a little over half of the United States has participated. And some have participated more than once. They certainly found it beneficial, but other states haven't participated at all, even though it's encouraged.
Well, I'm embarrassed to say that I have no clue if our state has participated, but I'm certainly going to look into this, because I'd be really curious to see what this entails, and certainly if our state had any recommendations or findings.
What's your state, Betsy?
I'm New York State.
And so I leave these little tidbits out there for you because it does make you wonder what's going on, and you can learn a lot about your program by understanding where they have been and where they're planning on going. So as part of the 5-year plan, how does your state fit in, and how do you fit into your state? Can somebody read the third bullet there?
Oh my God, people are so quiet. I'll jump in again, Don. The third section examines opportunities to improve support for law enforcement agencies as they pertain to motorcyclist safety.
And then the follow-up question to that is, what the heck does that mean? And I'll give you a shortcut here. I'll answer the question since everybody's quiet tonight. It means they're training law enforcement officers on what's illegal on a motorcycle and how to address them with the public in better manners. But it seems like something to me that they perhaps should already know. But that's just an opinion. You know, there is some training that goes along with it that's been developed and shared with states. And then finally, the fourth section identifies strategies as they pertain to the agency's federal agenda. So for the most part, that would be NHTSA's federal agenda and how it meshes in with the federal government at a higher level, not necessarily how they may integrate with lower levels, with the exception, I think, of working with all the different stakeholders. And I'd like to mention a little bit about that. In several of the discussions, stakeholders have been brought up this week. And stakeholders could be anybody who's involved with rider education, from the beginning rider or the non-rider who's coming to a course, rider coaches, sites, programs, states, motorcycle industry representatives, manufacturers, component manufacturers. It could be state motorcycle rights organizations, which I will hit briefly upon right here. You know that motorcycle safety or rider education really blossomed out of some of the state motorcycle riding organizations or rights organizations. So they are a significant stakeholder in this that perhaps we should touch and work with a little bit more to see if we could come to some common ground for training. I'm going to quick flip to the next, maybe. In the 5-year plan, one of the things that does address us as rider education very thoroughly is the core objectives. And these were actually in a document back from 1997. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I'd have to go look it up. But if you would please take a few moments to read down through there and tell me what would be your number one pick for these core objectives.
Sorry, Don, I'm on a cell phone tonight and it's much too small to be able to read.
Okay, no problems. Increasing access to rider education programs, increasing the proportion of motorcyclists who are properly licensed, reducing the number of motorcyclists riding while impaired, increasing motorcyclist visibility, conspicuity, increasing enforcement of motorcycle safety laws, incorporating motorcyclist safety into the design of roadways, increasing the survivability of motorcyclists who are involved in crashes, increasing the use of personal protective equipment, increasing helmet use, and increasing motorist awareness of motorcyclists' riding behaviors. I sometimes forget that people are on cell phones. I apologize. So what strikes you as important of these core objectives?
And I think one of mine would be the increasing motorcyclist visibility and conspicuity, whatever that last word is.
Conspicuity. And why would that be, Dennis?
Well, a lot of people say when they're driving around, they don't never see a motorcyclist, or they never see a motorcyclist until after they hit them. And the visibility, to me, would be the more important thing we all as motorcyclists do, as well as rider coaches, to increase the idea that riders try to ride with a lot of visible riding gear on, because as many of you know, within the last 5, 10, 15 years, a lot of the riding gear for motorcyclists has gotten to be shown better visibility, like, you know, bright colors, reflective material, and so forth.
Okay. Anybody else?
So to me, the increasing the survivability of motorcyclists who are involved in crashes.
And why?
Well, you know, to increase the survivability, actually, to me, incorporates increasing helmet use, increasing motorcyclists visibility. To me, that is like increasing the amount of rider education. All those things put together could survivability of the motorcyclists.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree that a combination of some of these, almost like 1 and 2, we know from the old Hertz study that even people who take the time to try to get licensed, you know, have fewer accidents than people who have no training. So I think, you know, making training and awareness available and helping people get licensed, I think might have a huge impact in reducing deaths or accidents.
I'll buy that with some Kellogg's for breakfast.
I think one of the big ones on there is the reducing number of motorcyclists riding impaired. It's just crazy the number of riders that are out there that every weekend that's their goal, is go out and drink and ride.
One that stood out to me, not as the most important necessarily, but as an interesting one, was the one about law enforcement. Because it seemed like if we focus on a few of those other things, especially some of the earlier ones you were mentioning, like training and reducing riding impaired, we wouldn't have so much to worry about with enforcing laws.
Okay, I want you to hold on to that thought, Nicole. We'll come back to it. Anybody else?
Increasing motorist awareness of riding behaviors.
And why, Des?
They don't know what it takes to ride a motorcycle. They don't look for motorcycles. All of that would be combined with a lot of the other ones in there to make us more visible, make us use the proper riding gear all the time, and you know, educate the general public so they'll actually look. I use it in my classes sometimes. I ask somebody, I said, when you were growing up as a child, did your parents ever tell you to look out for motorcycles when you cross the street? More than likely they didn't. So you've kind of been programmed really not to look for them. So that's mine.
Okay.
So yeah, this is Belinda. I agree, and actually, I would even take off the riding behaviors part. I would just say increasing motorists' awareness of motorcyclists. Is it Phil? I think you just said, or Philip. So my kids, instead of getting to play, you know, that game, that slug bug game you get to see when you see the Volkswagen bugs. So my kids get to punch each other when they see a motorcycle. So like you said, it starts early at home. Look for them, because if they don't see them, they're going to hit them, right? That's one of my first things I always say. So what's the first thing they say? Any car driver jumps out of their car, and what's the first thing they say? I didn't see him. I didn't see him. That literally is the very first thing they say. So yes, I think there should be an entire section in the driver's license and driving permit of a car driver about motorcycle safety, and also increasing access to the rider education program. I don't think it should be this hard for us to get, in our area at least, to be able to get to that point. I don't think we should have to pay this much money, because when I hear you guys talk about free classes, I'm like, what? And, you know, and our class is filled up. I'm like, how is that possible? So increasing access, and then also just making motorists more aware of us.
Thank you, Belinda. I'm still stuck on whether it's positive or negative reinforcement to have your kids hit each other.
Oh, it is. Then I don't have to do it, and I don't get DHR called, so they can hit each other.
Only parents.
This is Dan again. So I've been working hard in the last 6 to 8 months with a gentleman who's actually done a lot of research on what he calls the science of being seen. He presented a program at Rev Talks a couple of months ago, and he's done a tremendous amount of gathering the research related to motorcyclists being seen. I've been digging into his research and some other stuff that we have posted on our website under our perception category. It's too much to get into tonight, but I'm feeling uncomfortable in that I'm hearing lots of things that that we're talking about here in this section, that based on the review of the literature related to being seen, that's been put together by his name is Kevin Williams. He's in the UK. A lot of stuff we're talking about here is outdated for sure, and maybe incorrect. I'll just go to the easy one. I've been for a long time an advocate of high vis gear and making ourselves visible, because the idea that automobile drivers don't see us, we need to be more visible. Our eyes, we know as Motorcycle Safety Foundation coaches, we know that our eyes and mind work together for us to be able to see something or perceive something. The whole idea that our eyes work like a camera is just not true. It's just incorrect. Why we don't get seen, the conspicuity issue is old. The research doesn't really support the idea that we don't get seen because we're not conspicuous, or we don't get seen because we're small. Our eyes and mind are not working that way. The whole idea of the motorist awareness program, motorist awareness programs have little or no effect the way we've done them for 30 or 40 years, because they are not consistent with the way our brain and our eyes work together. The idea that as motorcyclists we often equate an automobile driver saying, "I didn't see the motorcyclist," with the phrase, "he or she didn't look or didn't look properly." And there's very little evidence that drivers do not look or fail to look properly. They look, but they may not perceive. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why they may not perceive. So some of the stuff I think that we're throwing around here tonight is not consistent with the research, this research, the research on how we see and how motorcyclists can be seen is not in the motorcycling world literature. It's buried deep in literature related to perception and visibility. So it's not on our website yet, Don, because there's a lot of it. There's too much of it there. The only thing that we have that I would encourage people to do, and I don't have the actual link to it, if you go to our Smarter website, go to the education section, page down in the education section, and look for the document called The 4 Chances for Air, and take a look at that. It'll give you just a little bit of an insight into where some of my concerns are coming from. I apologize. I don't want to offend anybody. It's been a whole new thing for me, and it's a tough issue. The whole, we've had drivers pulling out in front of us, and we don't understand it. Nothing that we've tried, like awareness programs, has made one bit of difference in those type of crashes. They're out there, they continue to be out there, and none of our countermeasures that we've done And the two main countermeasures are trying to make the motorcycle and the motorcycle rider more conspicuous and try to make the motorist more aware. Those are the two countermeasures for the look but fail to see crash, and they don't work. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. That's great information to share, Dan, and I appreciate it greatly.
I think we have to be the leaders.
We do.
And I guess that's why I mean, that's why I put it out there. We've got a couple of things. We've got a couple of things in that education section down towards the bottom for drivers. Looking twice is not enough is one of the documents that's there. The 4 chances for error is one of the documents that's there. But we don't have the research all put together yet. I'm working closely with Mr. Williams in the UK. His document summarizing the research on what he calls the science of being seen is 110 to 125 pages long, identifying research and how it connects to we as riders. And I'm working with him to try to sort through that stuff so that we can get it in a manner that we can get it posted on our website and it makes sense. It's easier to get to. Right now, it's just too complicated. So thanks for listening.
No, I think that emphasizes 2 things in my mind. One is what we're using with is old information.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the reasons why I mean, this is from 2014. Yeah. This is only 2019, and neither one of them are really serving us the way that it should. And I think another thing that you said that's important there is these are our people that are helping create this information, and I think we can do a better job of it. And that's why we have a group like this that can come together and throw out those good ideas. Now, to hit the second part, I want to go back and touch on what Nicole said. So what did you say, Nicole?
Sorry, I had trouble unmuting myself.
That's all right.
I had said that the enforcement of motorcycle safety laws might be less of an issue to focus on if we were doing better at some of the other things like the rider education or reducing impaired riding or having properly licensed motorcyclists.
Okay, thank you. This gets back to in my mind, the carrot and the stick keep coming back up. Do you want to help people by giving them something that they gain and take away from? Or do you want to wait till they screw up and beat them with the stick and hope that they'll remember and change their behavior? So if you look at all these cool core objectives, for the most part, does not rider education alleviate the burdens of almost all of them? Or should it be a part of all of them? And can we, as a profession, as a group of professionals, start to let people know in a more acceptable fashion that rider education meets the criteria to help on almost all of these, if the rider, future rider, or current rider is willing to try to make a change. We had a discussion, I'm trying to think of whether it was happy hour on Wednesday or the state program administrators meeting on Thursday, where it was Wednesday night. We were talking about judgment and how judgment can be modeled. Judgment can be taught. Education helps us to have better judgment. And you don't take a kindergartner, I think I used this little thing, this is an egg of learning. You don't take a kindergartner, teach them how to read basic stuff, one-syllable words, teach them the alphabet, and then say, your school is done. It's over. You've learned enough to go out and be successful in life. No, what we do is we give them at least another 12 years, if not 16 years of education. We give them the advantage of an education so that they can be successful in life. But in America, the United States of America, where freedom is important, we don't do a very good job of educating them how to be safe on a motorcycle. And once we teach them the alphabet, we kind of let them go of their own accord. And we're seeing the results of that in the statistics. So that's Don's soapbox for the evening. And I'm going to take it a little bit further by going back to an article I probably wrote at the beginning of this year. And it talked about the statistics of crashes and who is making these crashes happen. And hands down, I think it came out, I don't quote me on the statistics here, but almost somewhere between 60 and 70% of crashes are the rider's fault because of the behavior of the rider, not necessarily the other vehicles. And that kind of supports some of the things that Dan says. If you're interested, you can go find the article on the website, or I believe they posted it in one of the AMA motorcyclist magazines. But the fact is, we motorcyclists have a responsibility here, and for too long, we've pointed the fingers at other people, and it's time for us to step up and possibly change how we educate people and change riding behavior. All right, so we're down to a couple minutes. We're going to go over. I hope you don't mind. I did want to touch on the Institute for Two Wheels of Germany, two-wheel riding or something to that extent. IFZ, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Their 13th International Motorcycle Conference. I put a link up there. Really, all you have to do is type ifz.de, and then you'll be able to get to the program for the 13th International Motorcycle Conference. The presenters are exceptional, and they're the type of people we want on our team, and they really are in search of ways, countermeasures, to make riding better. You can see where they're all from there. The beauty of this year's conference is it's completely free. It's online, and if you watch the sessions and have questions, I think that if you have questions, I know that on the 6th of October, you can join up to the live session and ask questions of the presenters themselves and get a direct answer. The U.S. very rarely represents at this conference, and this is a wonderful opportunity for us to make a mark and be a part of something international that really puts us in a better light, I think. So I recommend to you, I encourage you, since that's the word of the evening, to go out and watch whatever session inspires you to watch it. Take something away from it, and then if you have the opportunity on the 6th, ask some questions, find out more, be curious, and take something away from it. Thoughtful questions, please. Guess what? I do have another poll tonight. I know you're so excited. Let me see if that's not it. Gosh darn it. That's what happens when I do too much. All right. Tonight's Tribe Talk polls, 27 September 2020. The first question is, what makes stopping in a curve more difficult? A, balancing the forces needed for slowing and cornering. B, needing more skillful riding technique and familiarity with controls. C, having too much speed when approaching the curve. D, looking where you want to go while looking at a stop point. And E, motorcycles are not designed to slow and brake while they are leaned over. Second question, a person's reaction distance after identifying the need to stop for an emergency when traveling 50 miles per hour is closest to which of the following distances? A, 88 feet. B, 20 feet. C, 122 feet. D, 33 feet. And E, 55 feet. Everybody chose the second question first. I understand. %. We'll give it another minute. %, which I think is where we were last time, give or take. Give it another 15 seconds. Some answer changing going on. I love it. $13 of 13. Wow, here we go. All right, in polling and share the results. All right, number one, what makes stopping in a curve more difficult? The correct answer with 62% is balancing the forces needed for slowing and cornering. Number two, a person's reaction distance after identifying the need to stop for an emergency when traveling 50 miles per hour is closest to which of the following distances? The correct answer is 55 feet, 23% of the respondents. The most popular answer was 122 feet. So good stuff there. Let me take a couple snapshots here. Oh, come on. Here we go. All right. I think I may have screwed that up. Nope. Here we go. How to build the tribe. Hey, you know, I'm going to hit on this until I'm either successful or you all run away. Please, please, please bring more people in. And if you'd like to present for Tribe Talks, it may be a lot funner than listening to Don. So I give you the option to certainly present and share your wealth of knowledge with everybody. And Dan, I just wrote you down for a future presentation on motorist awareness, science of being seen, because I think that's an extremely important topic.
Thank you, sir.
I'll
I
give you
second
time.
that request.
And if you want to bring the actual researcher in, by all means, I would love to listen to somebody's ideas about this. Please be motivated. As bleak as it may seem sometimes, I have faith that we will do better and that we can do better. And the best way to do that is mentor somebody, find somebody that also has a like mind, should be in our tribe, and mentor them. And what you find out is most often you're mentored by them, and it's something really special to take away the interconnectedness of who we are all in this profession. Man, if I would just update my slides, everything would be better. It's actually September 27th. I did good on everything else but that. I apologize. Don't forget, if you have the opportunity to go out to IFZ and catch the information being shared there, as well as Tuesday evening for the next VRETs by Dr. Ray and MSF. The next Tribe Talk will be October 25th. Thanks, Belinda, for pushing me on that date. And then, as normal, we'll continue the Tribe Talk happy hour every Wednesday, 7 to 9 p.m. for all you people that just like to, gab and talk about cool things. Whoa, it worked. Hey, thanks a lot for showing up to Tribe Talk tonight. It's great to see your faces, especially for those people who haven't been around a while. And man, what a good time. I enjoyed myself a little bit. Any parting alibis by anybody out here?
John, thanks again for your input in this nightly thing. Tried to keep myself awake even though I rode about 500 miles today, but I managed to do it anyway.
Good job, Dennis.
Everybody take care. Have a good week. See you next time, possibly maybe Wednesday night or next, or whenever that Sunday is in October. I forgot.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Good night, all.
Good night. I agree with you, Rick. High school motorcycle awareness programs would be nice. Any drivers in training in high school. Greatly needed.
It all helps.
That's
Thanks, Don.
That's one time when we have them captive. They all have to take it, so I wish those programs were better.
Anytime. Have a good night.
Good night, all.